The following program is produced and furnished by Sean Kelley, who is entirely responsible for its content.
Welcome to CyberChat with Sean Kelley, former CISO at EPA and former Deputy CIO at Veterans Affairs on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. CyberChat, where government leaders come to discuss the hottest cyber topics affecting us today. Now your host, Sean Kelley.
Today we're going to be talking to Mr. James Scott, Senior ICIT Fellow and author of the new book, Information Warfare. James, thank you very much for joining me today, and congrats on the new book.
Oh, thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
No, so I read the book, great book. Well, I'm going to say I read most of the book. I had to get through the rest of it. But one thing that struck me as soon as I picked up the book was you dedicated to your sons, Nigel and Liam.
Yeah.
Why?
Well, this actually started out as a handbook for one of the federal agencies. So there's like two versions of this. And what I found was I wanted to red pill my sons. I was never one to read children's books to my kids. I always read things to weaponize their thinking. So I read Art of War, The Prince by Machiavelli, like 48 Laws of Power, this sort of thing to them. Maybe it sounds weird, but they're great kids now, and they have strong minds, and so I took this opportunity. The non-classified version of this we made available for free. And so the way I kind of wrote it was so that when you're experiencing fake news or an influence op, whether it's from a special interest group or a dragnet surveillance capitalist that uses consumer fetishism to like push things on you that you don't need, and the way the media manipulates the minds, I just wanted them to have a handbook to recognize it when they see it and combat it when they can.
So you mentioned the red pill. So anybody who's in cyber knows you're referring to The Matrix.
It's funny. I never saw that movie.
What?
Until after I wrote the book.
Are you serious?
I swear. Yeah, I swear to God. Yeah, and the other movie. What's the other one with that Leonardo DiCaprio guy? Oh
no. I
don't know. It's another like mind-bending type movie. I watched that after I wrote the book as well. And it's funny because with NATO and in the intelligence community, for meme warfare, you have there's a new term now for an architect, someone that is a social engineer with technical acumen that can do the exploit along, weaponizing digital vectors, whether it's a technical exploit or an information exploit. And so it's funny how the term came out of, architect, programmer, so it's very cool.
Yeah. So, but let me pull on that thread a little bit, go down that rabbit hole. But are we? I mean, we're not being controlled by a massive computer. But in your book, there is a lot that the information, the data will be given, the thoughts, and based on the type of person you are, you could be just walking almost down the road that's been meant for us to walk down, if you're not really thinking about how you're interacting with the different data elements you meet every single day.
Yeah. The way things are right now, and I think last time I was on the show, I said, if there's a vulnerability to the narrative, and the vulnerability is the meme. So if you control the meme, you control the information, you control the belief system, you control the narrative, and if you can control the narrative, you can control the population. Like that's how it works. So you have to understand who your target audience is. So first I'll say influence operations abroad, spreading democracy, easing the psychological impact of a tragic event here. Influence operations is a necessity for keeping things from spiraling out of chaos. So it's information. There's a way to target, you don't want to waste space. And I think that, this is what I'm doing here in the federal agency space and with NATO and Five Eyes. I'm showing them how to target properly. And the objective is to target the cognitive biases, those psychological and emotional knee-jerk reactions to fear, to whatever. It's the core of what people are. And I think that to do that, I usually will start with spiral dynamics, which gives you the social evolutionary state of the target audience. The next thing is you want to understand the psychoarchetype. So what I found to be most useful is socionics. So I've been pushing that. You can find out who the psychoarchetype pairs, natural alliances are. So within the digital tribal system, you are targeting a particular silo with an ideological variant. You're weaponizing hashtags, using that for information delivery to expedite information delivery. But then you can also see who their direct adversaries are, the psychoarchetypes for them. Especially those are useful when it's a chaos op, for example, when you want both sides to clash. We're seeing that a lot now with the color revolution template that is being used all over the place by China, Russia, Iran, and the special interest groups domestically. So the metadata is another thing. So the metadata is curated by these corporations, and it's just gotten completely out of hand, because then you can psychologically steer the perceptions of everyone. And now you see machine learning and artificial intelligence, deep learning injected into bot technology. Mm-hmm. And so now this is steering the perception, manipulating cognitive biases. It's just, this book, we got almost 2 million downloads already, and it's been like, I don't know, a month or 2 months or two, something like that. Yeah. So it's that, I don't know, does that answer your question?
No, it does. It does. And we'll get into it. But the mem is, I look at it, and I totally look at it now through a different lens. Mm-hmm. Now that I read the book. I don't even know if I gave it that much attention, but you also make the point in the book that there are people that will. Mm-hmm. And they'll look at it totally different. And it really just depends on, are you one of those people who looks at things and I guess it also comes down to what you already believe looking at that, mm-hmm. But do you really think, and I know there's a broad discussion across, I guess, the collegial environment of how impactful they are, because different meanings can be taken from different people looking at them. So go ahead. Yeah, please.
Let me tell you. When I was writing this and I was testing processes, I was like, all right, well, you can write about, but let's start using some of these techniques. So I saw from a particular news show, they posted a video on YouTube of this complete mind midget automaton. They were trying to normalize this individual, and I'm like, wow, this is what news is now. This isn't just fake news. This is mind bending, mind midget automatons. And so I'm like, all right, here. I did a tweet with their handle and a hashtag, a particular hashtag, and I put it through a 5-hour cycle of an influence op. The very next day, they took the hashtag that I used, re-weaponized it, and was paying Twitter to promote it, and it went viral. That, just a few hours. And that was nothing. It was nothing. And so your ideas and beliefs are not original from your mind. It's your parents. It's the different political silos that you associate with. It's the ideological variant of religion. It's the level of religiosity. It's the level, and so it's all these outside packets of information that become normalized. They then bypass the critical faculty. They get into your subconscious and become part of your automatic reactionary system. So yeah, I think your thoughts and everything come from other people, and the meme is the embryo of this thing.
Okay. My guest today is Mr. James Scott, Senior ICIT Fellow and author of the new book, Information Warfare. I am Sean Kelley, and this is CyberChat on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.
We're covering the news that's critical to your career. Experience the difference of the journalists at federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.
Welcome back to CyberChat on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. My guest today is Mr. James Scott, Senior ICIT Fellow and author of Information Warfare. James, before we talked about the meme, we talked about the embryo, we talked about how this all comes together. And one of the things that I believe is that 20, 30 years ago, news was like, dragnet, right? Stick to the facts, only the facts, right? And now news has become entertainment. Mm-hmm. We've seen some prestigious newscasters no longer on the air because they embellished the reporting. And so the higher ground of the news establishment seems to have deteriorated to some degree, which I believe has opened up for these other venues to come in. And they don't all follow the same standards that we expect of our news cycles. Is that really where we are today?
Yeah, you look at the reality that we're the tragic inheritors of a mass hallucination that was started and perpetuated by Eddie Bernays, who was Sigmund Freud's son. So he used consumer fetishism to get people to buy things. So he was the originator of propaganda and PR and stuff. So over time, he found that he could simply use the media, weaponize it against the viewers or listeners or readers. And that's where you have the idea of traditional broadcast media, traditional media, mainstream media. So he used like the newspapers, the radio, and TV. And news has always been fake news to a certain degree. It has always been that way. It's a way to steer perception. The military-industrial complex uses it to facilitate Hegelian dialectic operations, to take tragedy, weaponize it for the benefit of capitalism, this sort of thing. And so the news the broadcast media, they've never really been journalists. They're news readers. Somebody's talking into the ear, they're regurgitating what they hear. A producer's giving them the information. You know what I mean? So they're not coming up with anything original. And, I think that there has been a deterioration with the confidence that people had in this narrative illusion. But I think that now we have so many options, and we talked about this before. Like we're no longer a world that's divided by geographic lines in the sand. That these two men, one fought a war. Now there's this border, and everybody respects that geographic, line in the sand. We're ruled by a digital tribal chieftain society that's siloed into ideological variants. And so we're becoming more and more polarized because people are being pulled into deeper and deeper into this virtual reality, and this is where the whole information warfare, the digital information warfare, digital psyops. We're seeing a digital first digitized gamification of a psyop with the QAnon thing. That started out as a real insider, and now it's like a psyop pretty much.
Yeah. So let's pull that string on information warfare. We have domestic and we have foreign. Okay. Domestic is mostly for a political advantage or an ideological advantage or financial advantage. I mean, for the most part. But then we also have the foreign, right? Where are we seeing a decrease in the overt cyber incidents, and we're shifting more to an information warfare stance where we're going to try to influence how people think versus just completely going after intellectual capital or intellectual
from
property.
From a hacking perspective?
Yes, from an actor's perspective.
Domestic or abroad?
Abroad.
I think
and domestic.
Yeah, well, I think domestically, I think you see psychological warfare, information warfare, and influence operations done specifically with political campaigns. That's where I'm seeing it done for the most part here. And then if there's like tragic events, for example, you saw, for example, CNN completely controlled the mainstream narrative with the unfortunate incident at the Florida high school.
Parkland, yeah.
Yeah, they were literally scripting everything towards the anti-Second Amendment agenda, and that is an agenda. You saw you could go on and on about that whole thing. But I think the technological abroad, as far as cyber warfare, information warfare, I think that hacking is going to continue to hyper evolve. We just launched Center for Space Warfare Studies. I was with friends from NASA last night. We're just like getting all that moving. That's SATCOM interception. There's virtually no cybersecurity whatsoever.
Agreed.
With satellites and signals intelligence, interceptions, manipulation, forgery. They haven't even gotten to the endpoint security aspect now to get past the to beat down the mutating hash using artificial intelligence and machine learning, which they should. You would think that if you're going to spend $1 billion on a satellite, but I think we're going to continue to have offensive cyber missions, but now what we're doing, this will not be won by governments, because governments can't turn on a dime. They can't pivot quick enough because they're just too bureaucratic. Mm-hmm. And they're too politically siloed within the agencies to be effective in both the mental exploit and the technical exploit. So I think that we're going to start seeing a combination of mercenaries that are social engineers with severe, potent technical acumen. And they're going to weaponize digital vectors and distribute things like ransomware, malware targeting critical infrastructure executives with elevated privileges, or politicians with, a keylogger and hot mic camera activation, stuff like that on the computer, so you can listen in. There's a lot of black ops, espionage type thing, but you're also going to have the more digitized a nation becomes, the more susceptible they are to perception steering and information warfare. And on that note, I was in one of the agencies yesterday, and we're dealing with the Chinese colonization of Africa, and they're doing it for agricultural reasons, all this kind of stuff. And for me to advise on this, on psychological warfare with digitized psychological war, it's difficult because there's no technological infrastructure. So we have to build it first. Okay. And so now we're going through the agencies to bring money into Africa. So, you have the surveillance capability. You have you can monitor the Chinese activity, and what they're doing, what type of economic viability are they bringing to the situation. So that'll take at least 10 years to have an impact there, because you're looking at Ghana, you're looking at. So, yeah, I think that we're heading into a space where in Asia and Europe and the U.S. and South America, the technological infrastructure is there in a way where you can have potent cyber war and potent digitized information warfare.
Outstanding. My guest today is Mr. James Scott, ICIT Fellow and author of Information Warfare. I am Sean Kelley, and this is CyberChat on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.
We're covering the news that's critical to your career. Experience the difference of the journalists at federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM.
Welcome back to CyberChat on federalnewsradio.com and 1500 AM. My guest today is Mr. James Scott, Senior ICIT Fellow and author of Information Warfare. James, we've been talking about your new book, and we were talking about it as a cookbook, right? And I've gone through, I would say 75% of it. I want to go back and read it more carefully. Tell me, from the moment I start reading that book until I get to the end, one, what is that I should be taking away, and how do I use it?
Yeah, I think one thing that I think is easiest to start with is to use the techniques, talking about the social media. After you understand how you're being targeted, you can understand, I think that's in the beginning of the book, the manipulation of cognitive biases, spiral dynamics, the socionics, psychoarchetypes, the weaponization of metadata against you. This is I want people to first understand that this is being done now. I say this all the time. Dragnet surveillance capitalists that became Dragnet surveillance propagandists and are now a corporate nation-state censorship collective. So they have you under surveillance. They're putting propaganda out there. They're perception steering, and they are censoring the content that you see. This is what every nation-state wants. If you can control the information, you control the mind, because you limit what they're getting access to. So after they see how they're being targeted, I really want them to understand the the weaponization facilitation of the vectors, like on Twitter, the weaponized hashtags, the illusion of a viral tweet with using bot technologies, artificial intelligence and machine learning injected into bot technology for the illusion of a viral comment thread with 100 retweets, 1,000 likes, and then the sharing, yeah, and then you have that on Facebook, you have it on YouTube. I think that's the main stuff. And then I think it's a weaponizing of the mind. If, we've had people that just, I was at a Grover Norquist meeting yesterday. They've asked me back 3 times just to talk about the Chinese warfare and stuff like that. And afterwards, they'd asked me to do a talk. Actually, it'll be on our YouTube channel soon. And there were people just thanking me just for opening their minds to this. I feel like I was just like a vessel, just trying to do something right. It was, and so the cool thing that I also am seeing is that people are making memes. So I get a ton of emails where they're like, would you mind if I use your picture and can I put quotes on here? I'm like, look, as long as it's taken in context, I mean, some people go a little nutty with it, like scratching my eyes out and stuff and putting these quotes from that I was saying I thought was on the down low, but I guess it kind of looks cool.
Yeah.
But they're making memes. Now, whatever political, ideological variant silo they're in, I have people on the very far left that are doing memes in support of my work.
Yeah.
Other stuff too, like they're watching videos. They're learning about cybersecurity.
Yes.
They're learning about nation state cyber warfare. They're learning about legislation, like the Cyber Shield Act and like important stuff, Graham Klobuchar Amendment. And then you have people on the alt-right that are saying, quote unquote, pray for this man. Like, it's like, wow, what, do I come across like I'm that nutty? But it's just really it's really rewarding to see people kind of using me as their guinea pig to make memes. And I try to support it. I try to retweet them. I can only retweet so many until I look like I'm arrogant or something. I'm trying to support what they're doing. So.
No, I get it. So yes, the book is very enlightening, right? And a lot of the things that we talk about or you talk about on the YouTube channels is as well. But then we still have the problem, right? So if domestically and foreign, we're being bombarded with a whole bunch of misinformation, right? How do you get the right information?
Yeah, see, that's the thing. I did an interview with this after the event, after our Winter Summit, I think. And a couple of things. So if you're a Fox viewer, for example, you're choosing to hear a purely conservative narrative that's going to continue to bring you in deeper and deeper and deeper into that ideology, right? That's a lot of control that Fox will have over you, over your thinking, because they'll take something that maybe you don't necessarily agree with, but they'll normalize it to the extent where psychologically and emotionally you're accepting this as your narrative. So I look, if you watch Fox, don't watch CNN. Just don't watch CNN. If you hate yourself, watch CNN. But watch MSNBC or something really progressive and watch them both equally. And what you'll find is that your mind will go from just far-right ideology and you'll see how many things you have in common with people on the left. And what'll happen is you'll come together and you'll start creating your own narrative and you'll be less dependent on everyone feeding you the narrative. And the same thing if you're on the far left, watch Fox. You might not like it, but it'll be torture. But after a month, you'll be like, wow, this actually works. If you're a Rush Limbaugh guy, listen to whatever, Morning Joe or something.
Yeah. So I think basically what you're saying is listen to both sides of the argument. Make sure that you're not just getting one side of any story.
And you can't and I tell this with NATO in particular because they try to be offensive from the defensive position because they're a defensive organization. So I tell them you can't inoculate this from happening. You have to inoculate it in the mind. So it's education. This book's a good start for education.
It is.
Yeah, I hope.
No, I think it's very well written. So we have a couple minutes left. Let's talk about ICIT. What there's a summit coming up in June at the Mandarin Hotel in Washington, D.C. What else is coming up?
Well, today we launched Center for Space Warfare Studies. So I'm writing a book on that now. We're talking about the weaponization of space, defense of American assets, cyber attack, hacking. So that's cool. We have Center for Cyber Influence Operations Studies, which is a study of propaganda in a digital setting using weaponized vectors, the same vectors that are being used for hacking. We've been doing, like with Centrify, you had Greg Cranley in here earlier. We're doing dinners throughout the country where we're doing, I think we're calling them intelligence briefings. So we're giving them non-classified briefings, but it's major C-level executives that are coming to these small dinners. So I sign books and do like one of those fireside chat things with Parm. And we're doing a lot at RSA. I'll be signing books at like different booths and stuff for companies to bring traffic. You had Josh Phillip in here from Epic Times. He is he's a very good friend, and he's one of the hardest hitting investigative journalists because he's ruthless. He's ruthless. So I'm going up there next week, and we're gonna do some more video stuff. I'm gonna do some media with them. I'm working on a thing right now. I can't talk about it with them because I don't want to blow it for them, but it has to do with the book.
Okay.
And so yeah, lots of really good things happening. Our advisory is growing like crazy. We're in most of the agencies that deal with hacking, and we have, full advisory schedule for ICIT, full advisory schedule for CIOS, and now for space warfare. So it's going really well, man.
You guys have a lot of research. Where do listeners go to find that research?
Yeah, we make it available for free, and so it's either on the blog or the publication link on icitech.org.
My guest today has been Mr. James Scott, Senior ICIT Fellow and author of Information Warfare. You can find his book on Amazon. I am Sean Kelley. Thank you for listening. You can follow me on Twitter at Mr. Sean Kelley. We will see you next month. Thank you.
You've been listening to CyberChat with Sean Kelley. If you missed any part of this program, you can hear the entire show at federalnewsradio.com. Search CyberChat.